Prince of Persia: Sands of Time is one of those games millions of people played as kids, and it's often counted among the greatest games in gaming history. So when a remake gets announced, the excitement from fans instantly goes to the next level. Everyone feels like their childhood is finally about to come back with modern graphics. But then a teaser trailer drops, and that's where the real controversies begin. Delays, studio changes, restarts, and even cancellations. And honestly, that's pretty much been the story of this entire series. There were years when the game was literally at the peak of gaming, and then the downfall didn't take long to happen. So in today's video, you're going to find out the complete story of how this series started and who's actually responsible for the condition it's in today. Just make sure you drop a like on the video right now, because later you might not feel like it. Well, all of this basically starts with a psychology student named Jordan Mechner. He was really passionate about animation, and because of that passion, he created a martial arts action game in 1984 called Karateka. In this game, the player controls a hero who goes to rescue Princess Mariko from the fortress of the villain Akuma. The gameplay was based on side-scrolling movement and one-on-one fighting, where you use punches, kicks, and dodges. The most unique thing about it was its cinematic storytelling, cutscenes, and rotoscoped realistic animation. And at that time, games usually didn't have graphics or animations that impressive. But this game had both, and they stood out a lot. Because of that, it ended up selling around 500,000 copies. After the game received such a great response and made huge profits, the publishing company Broderbund suggested that Mechner create another game so they could make even more money. And after that suggestion, Mechner started searching for a new game idea, which eventually led to the birth of Prince of Persia. In 1989, the first Prince of Persia game was released, inspired by Middle Eastern stories, especially the Arabian Nights. Around that time, everyone was also a fan of Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's where Mechner got the idea for cinematic movement, and to turn that idea into reality, he recorded his brother's real-life movements and directly converted them into the game's animations. Because of this, the Prince of Persia character looked unbelievably realistic compared to other games of that time. Seriously, instead of the stiff and robotic movement you usually saw in games back then, every run, every jump, every sword fight here felt like a real human. And that realism became the soul of the game. The objective was simple. A beautiful princess had been imprisoned at the top of a tower by an evil vizier, and you only had 60 minutes to save her. Fighting through traps, enemies, and even the Shadow Prince, you have to rescue the princess before time runs out. With such a simple but exciting concept, smooth animation, and high-quality graphics, the game was almost guaranteed to be a hit. And that's exactly what happened. Even with huge titles like SimCity and Super Mario Land as the competition, Prince of Persia became a massive success. Even Disney's 1993 movie Aladdin took inspiration from this game. Gamers became so obsessed that they started speedrunning it. And before anyone realized it, Prince of Persia wasn't just a successful game anymore. It had become an iconic legend in gaming history and the beginning of a legendary franchise. After the first Prince of Persia game, Mechner took a break to learn filmmaking. Because of that, the development of the next Prince of Persia game got delayed. When he returned, he started working on the second part. This time, there wasn't much need to focus on graphics, because the first game already had exceptional visuals, and even after 4 years, no one had really surpassed them. So the team focused more on cutscenes and audio. The story continues right where the first game ended. The prince has married the princess and is now ruling the kingdom, but the evil vizier Jafar uses black magic to create a doppelganger of the prince. The prince's wife gets tricked, and the real prince ends up trapped on a distant island. Now the prince must use his magic carpet to save his wife and defeat the vizier. The game was titled Prince of Persia 2, The Shadow and the Flame, and it became a big hit in 1993. So the sequel was out. But now, Mechner had some completely different plans. He then started working on a new experimental game called The Last Express. The game was critically good, but because of poor marketing and bad timing, it ended up failing, which caused the company to suffer a financial loss of around $6 million. By this point, the gaming industry had completely changed. The era of 2D was ending, and 3D had become the future. During this time, Red Orb Entertainment gave Mechner the idea of making a 3D Prince of Persia. Mechner liked the concept, and in 1999 he released released Prince of Persia 3D, which turned out to be the biggest disaster in the history of the franchise. This time, the story wasn't about the vizier, but focused on the prince's encounter with his own brother, Hassan, who ends up betraying him. A cousin who is half human and half tiger becomes the antagonist in the game, and the prince has to rescue his wife from him. The developers used motion capture technology this time and added new features like health potions. A 3D world, visuals, animations, and new mechanics were all meant to make the game feel completely next-gen. But the problem was that the game was never properly polished. The controls were clunky, the camera was broken, and bugs destroyed the experience. Critics brutally criticized it, and many people even called it a cheap copy of Tomb Raider. The failure was so massive that Prince of Persia's reputation was almost destroyed. The franchise became irrelevant. Things got so bad that it eventually had to be put up for sale. After the financial losses, TLC acquired Broderbund, and then Mattel acquired TLC. The new CEO planned to sell off the company's loss-making ventures, and Prince of Persia was also on that list. And this was exactly the lowest point when the fate of this dying franchise was about to change. This is where Ubisoft was about to enter the story. Ubisoft Montreal acquired the rights to the franchise and brought the original creator, Jordan Mechner, back. After that, producer Yanis Mela showed Mechner some 3D animations where the prince was running on walls, jumping between ladders, and that was the exact moment when Mechner felt that the game was finally ready to enter the next generation. And then it happened. In November 2003, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was released. And it wasn't just a game, it was the rebirth of the entire franchise. Honestly, who doesn't know this game? Whenever people talk about this franchise, the first name that pops into everyone's mind is Sands of Time. The game was a massive hit. It felt like a revolution, where the time rewind mechanic, parkour, story, music, everything was on another level. This time, the prince travels to India with his father to defeat a Maharaja, but an evil vizier unleashes the Sands of Time, which turns everyone into sand monsters. To stop the vizier, the prince teams up with a beautiful princess named Farah and sets out on his mission. In this game, the prince carries a dagger that can rewind or freeze time. Even story-wise, the game was incredibly strong. It was top tier in almost every aspect. Because of that, it won the Game of the Year award, and once again, Prince of Persia was counted among the most famous gaming franchises. After the massive success of Sands of Time, Ubisoft released the sequel in 2004 called Prince of Persia: Warrior Within. This time, the tone of the game was much darker. In the story, because the prince messed with time, an unstoppable creature named the Haka starts hunting him. Farah has forgotten the prince, so this time his love interest becomes Skylina. Because of some of her scenes, the game even received an M rating. The series was originally inspired by Arabian Nights, but now the prince was literally beheading his enemies, which definitely wasn't the original vision. This darker and more violent direction wasn't something the original creator, Jordan Mechner, liked, but Ubisoft believed that gamers had matured and wanted a darker prince. And even without Mechner's involvement, Prince of Persia: Warrior Within was released, and it still became successful. The game sold well, and both critics and fans praised it. Then in 2005, the final chapter of the trilogy arrived: Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. In this game, the prince returns to Babylon with his lover Kylina, but when he arrives, he sees that the city is burning. The vizier has returned once again. Kylina dies, and the prince's inner dark prince starts taking control of him. Along with all this, Farah also returns in this game, and in the end, the prince finally defeats his inner darkness. The story of this game was very strong, but it received a mixed response. Some criticism also started around the concept of the Dark Prince. Still, with this game, the trilogy got a satisfying ending. And with that ending, an invisible downfall had already begun. During this same period, Ubisoft was secretly working on a new project that was originally meant to be an evolution of Prince of Persia. The idea was to turn it into an open-world game where you wouldn't play as a prince, but as an assassin. The project was called Prince of Persia Assassin, but later it was given a completely new identity called Assassin's Creed. In 2007, Assassin's Creed was released, and it quickly became a goldmine for Ubisoft. Ubisoft. Its sales were many times higher than those of Prince of Persia. Ubisoft had officially found its new cash cow. Naturally, their focus started shifting. Prince of Persia slowly became secondary for them. But somewhere they still wanted to squeeze more money out of the series. That's why Mechner started talking with Hollywood to create a movie based on the game. He pitched the themes and characters of Sands of Time, but kept the story completely new. Hollywood accepted the movie, and Jake Gyllenhaal was chosen for the role of Dastan, who was actually a fan of the game since childhood. This time, Gemma Arterton played the role of Tamina. An interesting detail is that before the movie, the prince in the games never actually had a name. Director Mike Newell, who was known for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, was brought in to direct the film. The shooting set was one of the biggest productions of its time, and Disney was planning multiple films. Alongside the movie, Mechner and Malau were also working on a new Prince of Persia game that was released in 2008 with a completely new story, setting, and prince. Even with a beautiful art style and strong resources, the game ended up flopping because it was designed as an open world where the prince could never die. In short, it didn't really feel like a true Prince of Persia experience. Even after that flop, the developers didn't lose hope because the year 2010 had arrived, the same year the movie was about to be released. Ubisoft launched another game for the movie called The Forgotten Sands. It returned to the Sands of Time trilogy and tried to connect the story between Sands of Time and Warrior Within. In this game, the prince goes to seek help from his brother Malik to fight against a massive army. The visuals and storytelling were improved, but the reviews were only decent, and the sales were not very impressive either. The movie faced a similar fate. It was a fun film, but because it lacked a truly unique storyline, it only found limited success, and the planned sequels were cancelled. And slowly, the once king of its era, Prince of Persia, got lost somewhere in Ubisoft's priorities. Then came almost 10 to 12 years of silence. Some mobile games were released, but no major mainline game ever arrived. However, in 2012, when images of the Osiris project leaked, around that same time, another secret Prince of Persia project was also in development, which later became known as Prince of Persia Redemption. According to reports, its actual development was happening between 2010 and 2011 at Ubisoft Montreal, where animation director Kai Nguyen and his team created a pre-rendered pitch trailer for the project. In that trailer, the prince was shown with new powers like a short teleport dash, time manipulation, and abilities connected to a special corrupted arm. The trailer was even uploaded to YouTube in March 2012, but the project was never officially announced. At that time, Ubisoft had shifted its focus toward more profitable franchises, especially Assassin's Creed, Tom Clancy, and Far Cry, which is why Redemption never received a green light and was cancelled in its early stages. Later in 2020, when the original pitch footage went viral again, fans finally got confirmation that during the same era as the Osiris leaks, a real next-generation Prince of Persia game was secretly being developed. But unfortunately, it never got the chance to be released. And then, after years of silence, when fans had started to believe that Prince of Persia now only existed in memories, Ubisoft suddenly surprised everyone in 2020 with the official announcement of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time Remake. This was the same game that once revived the franchise, and now it was being promised a return with next-gen graphics. Initially, the remake was being developed by Ubisoft Mumbai and Ubisoft Pune, and the release date was set for January 2021. But as soon as the trailer dropped, fans were heavily disappointed. The graphics looked outdated, almost like the GTA trilogy situation, and the backlash was so massive that Ubisoft had to delay the game. The delay became so long that the entire development was actually shifted to Ubisoft Montreal. Yes, the same studio that created the original trilogy. After this development shift, fans actually became much happier because the OG Montreal studio was now handling the project. People started believing that now we might finally get something truly great. Fans felt that with next-gen graphics, we would finally get to relive our childhood favorite, Sands of Time, once again. Along with this shift, a new release target of 2023 was announced. But then another delay happened, and after that, Ubisoft revealed a new release window set for 2026. While the Sands of Time remake was stuck in an endless loop of delays, Ubisoft announced a completely new chapter in June 2023 called Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This time, the development was handled by Ubisoft Montpellier. The surprise was that instead of a 3D-style game, it was going back to the classic 2.5D format, where a new hero named Sargon fights using time powers. Fans were initially confused about this game, but the series creator Jordan Mechner himself supported it, which brought some hope back to the community. Finally, on January 18th, 2024, the game was released. Critics praised it a lot, saying its gameplay, combat, and platforming felt very similar to the classic side-scrolling Prince of Persia style, and were among the best elements of the franchise. But the problem was its price, which many people felt was quite high, and the characters shown in the game didn't really fit into the traditional Prince of Persia lore. This also became a controversial topic for many fans. The original Prince of Persia had a very traditional theme, usually featuring Indian or Middle Eastern characters, but this version felt quite different to many players. Because of these reasons, even though the game itself was good, its sales were not very impressive. The game failed to meet Ubisoft's expectations. And the irony was that despite positive reviews, Ubisoft ended up disbanding the development team and cancelling plans for a sequel. Just like Sands of Time once revived the franchise creatively, this game also brought back the spirit of Prince of Persia, but commercially, it couldn't deliver the results Ubisoft wanted. And then, just a few months after that game, in April 2024, Ubisoft announced another experiment called the Rogue Prince of Persia. This time, the development was handled by Evil Empire, and instead of a traditional story-driven comeback, it was a roguelike spin-off where the prince could return from death again and again using a time artifact. The game entered early access in May 2024, but its release also had to be delayed because, around the same time, a massive roguelike like Hades 2 was dominating the market. Finally, on August 20th, 2025, the game was fully released. Critics praised its gameplay and parkour, but they also said that the game lacked the uniqueness needed to truly stand out from its competitors. And that was the biggest issue. It was a good roguelike, but it wasn't the legendary Prince of Persia comeback fans were hoping for. Sands of Time had once redefined the entire franchise, but Rogue Prince ended up remaining just a side experiment. But even then, Ubisoft still had one major card left that could completely change the game. Yes, I'm talking about the Sands of Time remake. After years of waiting, its release finally felt very close. Even prominent insiders like Tom Henderson were saying that the game could launch before March 2026. An early presentation of the game had also leaked, where Farah and some of her new abilities were shown, but maybe we were never meant to play that game. On January 21st, 2026, Ubisoft made another announcement where they revealed that the remake had been cancelled. Yes, you heard that right. This time it wasn't another delay. The most awaited remake was completely cancelled. According to reports, the game was technically almost complete and was already very close to the finish line. But the problem was that it still needed more time and investment for polishing, fixing issues, and making it fully launch ready. Ubisoft had already spent 5 years and a massive budget on this project. The company was worried if the game launched in an average state, it could damage not only their money, but also the legacy of Prince of Persia. On top of that, Ubisoft's new strategy had started focusing mostly on large open world and long-term live service games, while Sands of Time was designed to be a linear, story-driven experience that didn't really fit their current business model. Because of this uncertainty, internal restructuring, layoffs, and future risks, Ubisoft made the final decision to cancel the remake at the last moment. So, that was the complete journey of Prince of Persia till now. Technically, the series is still part of Ubisoft's 5 creative houses, but no one can really say if a new game will ever come or not. As you saw in this video, the Prince of Persia games rarely gave Ubisoft huge commercial success. Most of the time, they either lost money or just barely broke even. And maybe that's why this series might remain on dead ice. Tell me in the comments whether you're sad about its cancellation or not. And if you want to know how EA completely killed Battlefield Mobile, then check out the video appearing on the screen. If you liked this video, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Till then, adios.